The sun was just peeking through the curtains of the cozy living room in Maplewood where Helen and George, both 58, sipped their morning coffee. Their new smartwatches gleamed on their wrists, a gift from their tech-savvy daughter, Lisa. Track your steps, monitor your heart rate, join virtual challenges, Lisa had said, her enthusiasm contagious. Helen, with her silver-streaked hair and a penchant for gardening, wasn't sure about all this tech nonsense. George, a retired accountant who loved his daily crossword, was equally skeptical. But Lisa's excitement had sparked something in them. Maybe it was time to shake things up. 3 key facts to set the stage I'll tell you now so you can follow along. First, smartwatches have become wildly popular among seniors, with over 30% of people over 55 using wearable fitness devices in 2025, according to health tech surveys. Second, virtual fitness challenges where people compete remotely via apps have surged since the pandemic, with platforms like Fitbit and Strava hosting millions of users. Third, Zoom-based fitness classes exploded in popularity, offering everything from yoga to high-intensity boot camps, often mixing participants of all ages. These facts ground our tale, but the rest? Well, let's just say it's a story of heart, humor, and a little bit of chaos. Now picture Helen and George sitting on their floral couch, poking at their smartwatches like they were alien artifacts. It says we've only walked 1,200 steps today, Helen said, squinting at the tiny screen. That's barely halfway to the mailbox and back. George, adjusting his glasses, tapped his watch. Look here. It's got a virtual final fitness challenge option. Says we can join a group and compete. Winner gets a badge or some such. Helen raised an eyebrow. A badge? What are we, Girl Scouts? But George's eyes twinkled. Bet I can outwalk you by Friday. That was it, the spark of competition. Back in their younger days, Helen and George were a force on the community tennis courts, always trying to one-up each other. Marriage hadn't dulled that edge, so they dove into the app, signing up for something called the Spring Sprint Challenge. The description promised high-energy group workouts, daily goals, and a chance to shine. Sounded perfect. They didn't read the fine print, though. Why would they? The watches were smart, right? Surely they'd handle the details. The next morning, Helen set up her laptop on the dining room table, a plate of oatmeal cookies nearby for moral support. George, in a slightly too tight golf shirt, stretched dramatically like he was about to run a marathon. Ready to crush this, Helen? He teased. She smirked, tying her sneakers. You'll be eating my dust, old man. At 10 a.m. sharp, they logged into the Zoom link provided by the app. The screen flickered, and there they were, staring at a grid of faces, none of them over 20, buff teens in neon tank tops, chugging energy drinks, bouncing to a thumping bass line. The instructor, a guy named Jake with a man bun and a megawatt smile, shouted, "Yo, let's get shredded, welcome to Teen Boot Camp Extreme." Helen froze. George whispered, "Teen Boot Camp? Did we join the wrong thing?" But before they could click leave meeting, Jake spotted them. "Hey, new faces." Helen and George, right? Let's see those burpees. 10 seconds, go. The kids on screens. Back on Zoom, Jake was relentless. "Mountain climbers, people, core engaged, knees up." Helen, puffing, muttered, "My core's engaged in trying not to fall over." George, sprawled on the rug, was doing something that looked more like a slow bicycle kick. But the teens, they were eating it up. A girl named Mia with purple streaks in her hair typed in the chat, "Y'all are legends." Another kid, Ethan, shouted, "Grandma and Grandpa are killing it." Helen shot George a look. "Grandma? I'm not that old." But she grinned, waving at the camera. The first session ended with Helen and George red-faced and sweaty, but oddly exhilarated. They hadn't kept up with the teens, not by a long shot, but they'd survived. Jake gave them a virtual high five. "You two are my MVPs today. Keep showing up." The chat exploded with heart emojis and "Go Helen" messages. George, mopping his brow, chuckled. Well, that was unexpected. Helen nodded, grabbing a cookie. We're not quitting now. Those kids think we can't hack it. Watch us. Over the next week, Helen and George became the unofficial mascots of Teen Bootcamp Extreme. They showed up every morning armed with determination and a growing collection of stretchy headbands. Helen's burpees got a little smoother, though she still grumbled about her knees. George mastered a modified push-up that he swore was better than the kids' version. The teens, at first amused, started to genuinely admire them. Mia asked Helen for tips on staying motivated. Ethan confessed to George that he was nervous about college applications, and George, in his quiet way, offered advice about following your gut. The app tracked their progress, and while Helen and George weren't topping the leaderboards, they were racking up steps and hitting daily goals. The smartwatches buzzed with encouragement. Great job, you've burned 200 calories. Helen would roll her eyes. 200 calories? That's one cookie. But she kept going, partly because she didn't want to lose to George and partly because the teens' energy was infectious. They even started a group chat called Team Maplewood, where the kids shared workout selfies and Helen posted pictures of her garden. George, not to be outdone, sent a photo of his prized tomato plants captioned, "Fuel for the grind." Of course, there were hiccups. One day, Helen accidentally left her mic on during a water break, and the whole class heard her say, "George, if you fart during a plank again, I'm locking you out of the house." The teens howled with laughter, and Jake had to pause the session to regain composure. Another time, George tried to show off with a jumping jack and tripped over the cat, landing in a heap. Mia recorded it and turned it into a slow-motion meme, which, to George's horror, went viral in the group chat. "I'm famous for all the wrong reasons," he groaned, but he couldn't help laughing. By the end of the 2-week challenge, Helen and George had logged over 100,000 steps each, survived countless burpees, and earned the respect of a bunch of teenagers who now called them Coach H and Coach G. The final Zoom session was a celebration, with Jake awarding them Spirit of the Bootcamp badges, digital, of course, but Helen printed hers out and stuck it on the fridge. The teens threw a virtual party, complete with a playlist of 80s hits that Helen and George insisted on. When Sweet Caroline came on, the whole group sang along, with Helen and George leading the charge. As the screen went dark, Helen leaned back in her chair, her smartwatch glowing with a new notification. Challenge complete. George, nursing a sore shoulder, smiled. We didn't win, but we didn't lose either. Helen nudged him. We won something better. Those kids think we're cool. They laughed, clinking their water glasses like they were toasting with champagne. Now, let's pause for a moment to reflect. Maybe you've got a smartwatch sitting on your wrist, or you've thought about joining a fitness challenge. Maybe you've had your own mix-up with technology. What would you do if you found yourself in Helen and George's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. To wrap up, let's revisit those key facts. Smartwatches are a hit with seniors, virtual fitness challenges are thriving, and Zoom classes bring people together across generations.